Hey YouTube family, welcome back. This week we're gonna start fertigating, but it's gonna be hot and dry. Sounds like we have a small chance of rain coming up Wednesday, but I'm not holding out for it. So I had the fertilizer company bring us out some tip-up tanks and filled them up with our fertigation blend, the blend that we're gonna put on through the pivots. I gotta unhook my four-wheeler and we'll hook up to this guy right now. So here's what we got. This is what I'm going to call the tender tank, and these are our tip-up tanks. They're bringing out truckloads to fill these up right now. It's even shiny new. Thanks, buoys. Poop stains. Got a 3-inch, 2-inch. I need to go find a adapter. Smells like hot plastic. I don't think I'll run it too fast since this is 3-inch. Going into 2-inch, so about half throttle. Well, we're full. It's even like a 1,300 gallon tank. So I wouldn't attempt this with anything else but a Chevrolet, especially a half-ton. So right now we're gonna head out to a field. I might have to back it into the one I'm thinking of because around the pivot point it's kind of wet and not very easily accessible. And so I'm probably gonna back it up. It'll take a little more time, but it'll make it worth it when I go to pull it out. Plus I won't have to tear down a bunch of corn to get into it. So we'll see how it works. The past few years I've done this, I really haven't noticed a difference between, my brother doesn't put up with this, so we just fertilize all up front. And I've been fertigating and we really haven't seen many yield differences. So I'm giving this a few more years maybe to see if it really pays or if it's just kind of a waste of time. The drawback to doing it this time of year is we need to be irrigating hard, and it's an extra job to do, and so it's got its pros and cons of whether to fertigate or not. So I guess we'll see how it helps. If it doesn't do much in the next maybe couple years, it might be something that we ex-nay, but it's something to always kind of play with to see if we can get a little bump out of the yield and maybe better stock quality, perhaps, being able to fertilize later. And so we'll see how it goes. 14,000 pounds in just fertilizer alone, and it pulls a lot better than those other ones. Going 55. Well, I'm starting to go uphill. It's a little bit of a weight for a half ton, but it's a 5.3. With these 8 speeds though, these things pull pretty nice. Any of you guys ever watch the TFL truck, the fast lane truck on YouTube? It's like the farmer version of the Ike Gauntlet. Luckily, we're not as high up as in the mountains. I think we're like 22, 300, 400 feet above sea level here. Now it's amazing what these pickups will do now. My brother's got 3/4 ton diesels, and my brother-in-law does too, and those things are just amazing what they can do. All jokes aside, all of them are doing well right now. You got your EcoBoost Ford, which would probably outpull this one. Dodge, Ram, Hemi. They're not Dodge, just Ram Hemis. And then you got your Chevrolet. We're gonna back up this pivot road. First thing we're gonna do is put it in 4 low. It's not the most leveled spot, but it's got a cone bottom. It's not bad actually. Okay, so here's the pump that makes the magic happen. This is a typical fertigation pump. What we'll do, Let's hook this guy up here. I'll wait to turn this on here until I get everything set up on this guy. What I'm gonna have to do is, since this pivot was running water through it already, I'm gonna have to wait for it to drain back to open up the place where this mister goes. This thing creates a pulse. If you can see that spring in there, these are pulse pumps, meaning they'll just go psh, psh, psh. That's how I can explain it. Well, that spring causes a little bit of back pressure, enough to make it mist in that pipe, allowing it to mist and kind of mix in the water a lot more evenly instead of just a stream going into it. So hopefully that makes sense, that it just mists it instead of streaming it. That way it's kind of more distributed throughout the water, creating a more uniform fertilizer application. And so that's what these do. This is a higher rate one, being stainless steel. Some of these are plastic, and those are usually a little bit lower rates, but since this is a 100-gallon-an-hour pump, we usually use the big ones because they're rated for it. How this works is you got a percentage reading, and so say you're gonna make a 20-hour circle and you want to put 100 or 1,000 gallon on. Well, you need to be able to put 50 gallon an hour on. And so since this is a 100-gallon-an-hour pump, it's fairly simple. You screw this back until you reach 50%. Right about there. Well, yeah, right about there. And so that's how you set it. The only thing is, you kind of got to watch it every so often just to kind of make sure you're coming out right. But you get head pressure, and the more it goes down, you get a little less pressure. And so it varies just a little bit. And so you try to kind of hit that average, which usually you do. You just kind of check it and make sure you're coming out right the first time around. So I got the Mr. pump, Mr. valve in there. So what's in here is called a check valve or chem valve. And there's a rubber flap. So say I'm pumping fertilizer and this well shuts down, and for some reason my pump doesn't shut off. Well, this flap's going to go back, and it'll just keep pumping fertilizer up this way instead of going back down into our well, because we don't want fertilizer going down, a bunch of it going back down into our aquifer. And so they make us do that, and they actually come out and inspect them every 3 years just to make sure they're working correctly. What I do is figure out how fast I want to pump off this 1,300 gallon of fertilizer, and then I'll set my pump accordingly. I'm just checking to kind of see how full this is. We're not quite 1,300 gallon. I'd say we're about 1,250. And so I'll do that math, 1,250. Maybe I'll have it do a 24-hour circle. Let me do some math here real quick, boys and girls. Need to do 52 gallon. So we're pumping from here, comes in and then out into our chem valve. Problem I have now is I lost my phone. So in order to set the speed of this pivot the way I want it, I'm gonna have to go back and find my phone or go to a computer and set it. Because I can't control it with the panel box. It's just I have to deactivate it on my phone in order for it to work right. So let's get out of here. So other vital information that I'll put down is we started it at 245. We got 1,250 gallon we're putting on, and we should take a 24-hour circle. And I write that down so I know when I come back how many gallons should be out of it, and where we're sitting. We should come out accurately, hopefully. So right now I'm going to log into the computer here and set my speed for the pivot. So right here I can enter in 24 hours and it'll determine the percentage it needs to go. Looks like it'll be putting on 31 hundredths when I do this. Save and send. Alright, so it upgraded the speed of my pivot. Now it should take roughly 23 hours and 52 minutes, it says. Also, I want to write down, we're at 322 degrees, so I need it to come back to that 322 to know that it made a full revolution, because I'm kind of starting it mid-cycle just so I can get it done. Looks like we're good. Does that fertilizer hurt the corn at all, or what's the dilution of the fertilizer going through that water. Well, that one was putting about 55 gallon an hour pumping it into the pivot. Well, that pivot's probably running 800 gallon per minute. So it's really diluted down as far as making it, you know, acidic to that pivot or anything like that. It's not going to hurt anything, all while adding a little bit of nitrogen to the soil. So in case if you're wondering. Good morning. So it's the next day here. I kind of went offline there yesterday because I ended up losing my phone, and we found it. I had a phone call when I was hooking up to a trailer, that fertilizer trailer, and I must have left it on the bumper or something, but we ended up finding the last location, and it was where it was located on Find My iPhone, but it was in about 1 million different pieces. I hope I have a picture for it. If I do, it's here. But it pretty much took a hardcore spill. It's not really recognizable. So this guy right here is what we call a surge valve. This actuator, or whatever you call these, is controlled by this box up here. And it'll shift this back and forth, either to go this way or that way. I'll try to show you the box here, the brain. So if you can see this here, it's kind of hard to hold and do, but we're on the last advance, and we have about maybe 20 minutes left. The goal is to get here when it's kind of done with its cycle. It's on its last cycle, and it's got 2 hours. It's 2 hours in on its last cycle. The idea is just to send it back and forth throughout the day, or this however long a cycle. You can program it to whatever you want, but I usually do a 24-hour on this field, and so every so often it shifts it back and forth, and over a 24-hour period it'll do it 7 times back and forth, always getting longer. So that's kind of how that works. I got done checking rows on the beans walking back to my four-wheeler. It seemed like it worked fairly good. Most of them were through. I had a couple that weren't, but they've been going really through hard on these beans. It just dried up quite a bit. They got a lot to push through. It's always harder, a little bit more residue in corn too. It's kind of got to work through, but all in all, I was happy with how these rows went through. So I think I'll continue doing it, unless on the corn side it's worse, but we'll see how that is. Yeah, my thought about water use is corn's coming into pollination here this week. Probably the next week, the corn over here will be pollinating. I want to make sure that's got a good profile going into it, because corn uses a lot of water during pollinating and thereafter for a few weeks, and so it's more crucial to get it water than it is these beans, because the beans will kind of start to pick up near the end of July here, going into August. That's when they really start to use the water, when they start filling their pods that they put on. But right now they're just kind of flowered, and I don't think they're setting any pods quite yet, or started filling pods anyway. Got the beans done. Let's go set the corn down. All right, we're gonna make this thing flip and go down this way. So you'll notice when it's shifting, it goes in increments. It'll kind of go a little ways and stop, go a little ways and stop. That way it just doesn't cause a lot of issues when you're surging it. That way, if you had a lot of pressure here, just slamming them both at the same time could cause issues. So this slowly does it, so they have it on a time delay to go every so often. So I'm gonna run down to the other end and check the rows, just to make sure most of them got through. After you get them through the first time, they usually go through okay, but you always want to make sure, especially when it's been as dry as it's been. Looking for right now is rows that look like that. Wet and look like they've been running water between them. Seeing all I need to see. Let's get out of here before the boogeyman shows up. Oh, four-wheel drive. Stuck in my track. So we're riding out to the pivot that I started the fertigation on yesterday. Gonna check to see how it's doing. yesterday this got controlled right after I got it set up, so meaning that the electric company shut down the power to this well. It was off for probably 4 or 5 hours yesterday, and then they turned it back on around 9 o'clock last night, so that kind of adds to the figuring on how we're doing. But right now looks like we're about half full, which the pivot's about halfway around from where we wanted it to be, and so I think we're doing pretty good. I'm going to do some calculations. So we're still pumping, everything's looking good. I did some math, it seems like it's coming out about right, and that's kind of what you go for, is about right. Now I'm just checking my other pivots. I'm supposed to get another trailer to go be able to do more here later, so, but I got some pivots that are shut off, so those need my attention first, unfortunately. Our fertilizer guy said he got this snake here. It's a rattler. Its tail's still twitching. Gross. Right now we're heading out to a pivot that I got to diagnose to figure out what's wrong with it. It shut off. I played with it a little bit this morning, thought it was going to take off, but then I noticed it shut off again right after I left. So heading out there now in the heat of the day. It's only, oh, the pickup says 100, but summertime. So I got a hill that kind of overlooks this pivot, and so I'm going to try to look down on it and guess to see if I can see a tower out of line. It's over the hill, but you probably can't see it with this little camera. One. Kind of looks like it might be in the center of the pivot. That's not good because it means it's as far about as you could walk from either direction. And it's at an angle with the rows. Trying to figure out how I want to attack this one. I think I'm going to take my four-wheeler to the east end. Walk. Well, I don't know. I don't really feel like walking out there, to be honest. It's kind of hard to tell because it's got a bow. But I know it's definitely a little more out of line than normal. I might as well drive to the center point. And then just walk them. It's in the middle of it somewhere. Either way, I'm going to walk the same amount, so. The only thing is I've never had it get stuck there, but it's always a first. So what I'll do is take a shovel with me just in case if I can kind of clean it out. My fear is something's wrong, like a gearbox or center drive. In that case, that requires a little more work, especially a gearbox. Gearboxes are heavy. They're probably about 750,000 pounds, give or take a couple pounds. Had a few muddy roads this morning. No easy way around it, gotta go out there and walk it. This is kind of the reason I always wear at least short sleeves and not cutoffs, because these leaves will kind of slice your shoulder arm, kind of up around your shoulder area pretty good. Sometimes I've even worn sweatshirts out here just for that fact. And then the hoodie, especially when it's pollinating, the hoodie will kind of keep the pollen from coming down your neck, getting you all itchy. I don't see any spinning. It's a little windy today. Tower 3 looks okay so far. I'm gonna curl up on a span here and see if I can see anything. Crap. Might be the second to the end tower. So it would have been faster to come the other way. Let's go, keep walking. Neighborhood, feeling blessed. Pick a YouTube crowd, I don't know the rest. There's a sign that we could have an issue, is when one wheel's dragging, or digging, and one is not. I'm gonna climb up and make sure this was the second to end tower though. Oh. I'm missing a bolt out of this one. The bolt could have broke because the gearbox went out, so that's what I'm assuming. A gearbox it shall be. I'll get down here and test it, but I'm pretty darn sure it'd be a gearbox. Stuff usually doesn't break like that unless that gearbox is bad. I mean, we could lie to ourselves and cause more pain, but let's just get it done. Well, coming up along the end of the pivot, you can see the dry spot right there. What you do is you pick the row that looked at you wrong and you run over that one. People do 60-inch corn trials all the time. So right here's your old gearbox. Actually, it's free now, but I'm gonna change it anyway because I've had them do this where they kind of work and they kind of don't, and then they'll come back around on a groove. So since I'm in the business, I'm gonna change it. All right, I'm out here. This is old. Just gonna do it. All right. Old gearbox. These are Vale's long output shaft. Somatics and Rankies are a little narrow here, so that's always something to look out for if you're new in the pivot business or whatever. But it looks like it leaks out here anyway. So drive shaft, I looked out, this was a newer style U-joint, and so these are a lot easier to take off and on. Ain't she pretty? People are gonna be driving by saying how pretty my gearboxes are. Well, gearbox. Now I'm gonna put the U-joint on right here, buckle this together, then it should be ready for the tire. So it's running. Looks like it's gonna work until the next thing potentially breaks down, but we don't want to have that kind of spirit, okay? So let's be positive and hope it at least reaches to the stop. Hopefully once it goes up to the stop, this is the wiper one, I'll have some fertilizer tank ready for it and we can fertilize it going back the other way. So that's my goal for this pivot anyways. Hey guys, I appreciate you tagging along on this this episode, but we got plenty more work to get done. We're still fertigating. We're kind of in the thick of it right now. We haven't even pollinated yet, so got more to come. So if you want, just keep following along. Thanks guys, we'll catch you later. Bye.